now recognize myself for 5 minutes for the purpose of asking questions. Out of the gates, without objection, I'd like to insert the written testimony of Cole Peterson, the data director for the California Republican Party, without objection. Ms. Titus, I want to start with you. In particular, kind of dialoguing the 7 days the ballots can be received by California after Election Day. You would think that it would have to be postmarked, right? I mean, the idea is that it's in the USPS system. What's the check on that in California? Do they review for postmark? What happens if it's not postmarked? Could you provide some color to that?
They do, in fact, review for postmarks, and they do reject mail ballots that either don't have a postmark or don't have a date. California doesn't require that the voter date their ballot when they sign it, but there is a space to do so. And if they are dated on or before Election Day but lack a postmark, then those would be counted.
So let's just dialogue this all the way through, because when I was at LA Central Count, I found this really interesting, because I watched ballots arrive by mail into the system 3 days after, as I noted, about 900,000 total ballots were somewhere in the process of being counted, of being validated, observed. The signature verification, we'll come to that second. But is your testimony that if USPS doesn't date the envelope and an individual then opens the ballot, the voter's not required to date the ballot in California under California law, but if they do date the ballot and they date it by Election Day, it would still count? Is that accurate?
Yes.
So the real check isn't that it was in, it's a trust system that the individual who dated the ballot dated it on the correct day, right?
Correct.
And so if somebody dated it by Election Day, USPS didn't stamp that with a postal date stamp, it would count?
Yes.
And that USPS doesn't date 100% of their mail.
Correct.
Yeah, so it sounds like a problem. And the way to fix this, of course, would just be to require that it's collected in by Election Day. I went to high school, I think a lot of us did, and when a paper was due, when did we write the paper? When it was due. And so if you just say it has to be in by Election Day, it shifts that. And Chairman Palmer, you noted 33 states require that ballots be in by Election Day. I'm assuming that means 17 plus maybe the District of Columbia allow them to come in after Election Day. Is that accurate?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Yep.
And is there a significant correlation with voter participation if it needs to be in by Election Day or after Election Day?
I don't think that there's a direct correlation.
Right, it's just people are going to do it by the deadline, right? So if you say you got to have it postmarked, you got to have it in by Election Day, you get a ton of people that drop it in the box by Election Day. If you say it's got to be received by Election Day, a lot of people drop it in sufficiently in advance or drop it in person so that at least the physical ballots are all in by a specific deadline, right?
I agree, sir.
And so if I'll come back to you, Ms. Titus. So California runs a system also where every registered voter receives a ballot, regardless of whether or not they requested it. It's automatically sent. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And so when that goes out, obviously not 100% of the people that receive a ballot participate in the election, but a large percentage, I think it was about 70 or so percent in the state of California. But for the purpose of calling election, not only do you need to know the numerator, how many ballots come in, and they can come in up to 7 days after the election, but you also need to know the denominator, which is how many total people are voting I apologize, the denominator in the context of what percent you would need to be able to win an election. So for 7 days, everybody in California is reasonably blind as the total number of ballots cast in an election. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And that makes it really hard to call a race, to know who won an election, right?
Yes.
And so that challenge, I think, is a real and substantive challenge. I want to end with the signature comparison. When I walked through LA Central Count, it was burned into my mind watching this woman do the signature verification. What standard or what training are the workers given who are engaged in the signature verification in California?
There is no standardized training.
So there's no training?
There's no standardized training.
Okay.
Some counties have more rigorous training. Some counties have very little. What I've also seen is the comparison process is often occurring on a computer screen, and they may be comparing 4 different voter ballots at the same time. So they will have the scans of the outside of envelope.
In the standard, so the training varies.
Training varies.
The woman that I met said she had almost no training.
And there's about 17 criteria they're supposed to apply when
And the standard that they have to meet is beyond a reasonable doubt?
Correct.
It's a pretty high standard.
Yes.
Especially in a situation where these live ballots are mailed to every registered voter. I think we've identified some of the challenges we see in California. Appreciate our witnesses here. Cognizant of the time, I'll now recognize the ranking member for 5 minutes for questions.